Welcome back, everybody, to the Podecito podcast. I am your host, Surreal469. Thank you for joining me as we go episode by episode through our collective favorite show. Of course, I'm talking about the incomparable Las Vegas. We are here on episode 18 of the season and the series, don't you know? Nevada State. This episode aired originally March 15th, 2004. And this is the cheerleader episode. It's also the Richard Allen Wesley episode. Before we get into all those details, I want to welcome a new member to the Podecito crew. Well, not new, because he's been a fan since essentially the beginning, but he's now with the Patreon, etc. He's supporting the show the way you all can support the show with the Patreon, the Buy Me a Coffee, the Cash App, etc. I'm talking about Anthony, who's joining Angie here at the Podecito crew. Welcome, Anthony. Let's get into it. Nevada State, episode 18, was directed by Timothy Busfield and written by Gary Scott Thompson. The puppet master himself, Daniel Arkin, and Vanessa Reeson. We have seen them before. This episode garnered a 7.4 out of 10 rating from IMDb. From Las Vegas-theseries.com on the Wayback Machine, it garnered 4.5 out of 5 chips, which means between the two of them, the aggregate rating is 8.2 out of 10, which is good for a B-. I like this episode. I don't know if I'd call it a B-. There are a couple of technical hiccups that I have an issue with, but we will get to those when we get to those, and I will give you my rating when we get to that. As we start the episode, let's just slice right through this here. We see the CGI Montecito, which still looks good to me. And we see some cheerleaders getting out of a bus from River High School. We see Mike pulling up and he's talking to the lady, or he's there at the ballet and he's trying to get the ladies to move along. And then he tells Mary,
I don't know if I'm in heaven or hell.
Mike, I don't know if you wanted to.
Why don't you have a seat right over there, please?
No, easy, Chris. I got this. This is my podcast. Take a seat. This scene has a musical cue. It starts off with a musical cue, don't you know? If you're watching on the original, why, Surreal? Do you have the original version? No, I don't have the original version. If you're watching on the original version, the song is called Shake Your Coconuts by Junior Senior, all spelled out. If you're watching on the DVD, it's a production song. If you're watching on any of the streamings, that's Peacock, Amazon, or Roku, the song is Running Home by Jacopo Tittarelli. I didn't make that name up. Ruboli. I didn't make that name up. Jacopo Tittarelli Ruboli. And Nico Charm. Do you want to know how you spell the first name? Sure. JACOPOTITTARELLI RUBBOLI. Look, I didn't make this name up.
Why don't you have a seat right over there?
Chris, pipe down. The cheerleaders are coming, and it's clearly a cheerleader competition because there's a few different cheerleaders.
Hey, Tigers. 3 words. Bring it.
Mary says that's her alma mater. It's so catty, and it wasn't like that when she was a cheerleader. Uh-oh, did she just reveal that she was a cheerleader? Yes, she did. And she got her first pom-pom joke. Mike?
Well, you still got your pom-poms?
Pom-pom humor never gets old.
That's not her only pom-pom joke of the show, but we will get to that when we get to that. And we hear her name being called. And the look on Mary's face when she hears this particular person call her name tells me that she is haunted by her past.
Mary? Mary, Carl! Hi! Hey! Oh my goodness!
Clearly, the person knows her, says that her name is Caroline, and that her and Mary were co-captains junior and senior year. Finally got them to state. She's the current coach and sponsor of the team. Don't you know? She sponsors it with her husband, Pazarchik's Beach Tan, which doesn't actually exist. That's an interesting name, by the way. Pazarchik. I wonder if that was the writers trying to say that Caroline is a bizarre chick. In any event, she's definitely a cheer wife because her husband, Todd, used to be a quarterback for the Cardinals, according to Mike. Now, we don't classify which Cardinals that was. It could have been football Cardinals, although I think one of the main football teams, their mascot is a cardinal, i.e. the tree, not the cardinals, i.e. the bird. And the only reason I know that is because of a PE teacher from junior high who had us look up scores in the paper from the day before to try to keep up with sports. I never would have known that otherwise, because even to this day, I don't keep up with college sports. Pro, yes, but I don't keep up with college sports. Although apparently I'm told I should. Yeah, whatever. She tries to ask Mary what her life is like before she runs off because she really doesn't care. And she's going to go back to her cheerleaders.
How about you, husband? House, kids?
No, I'm just busy working.
Hey,
I'm
stay together and no track
real
talk.
busy.
You
I'm
are
actually gonna have to
band
go
together.
because
We
I'm
need you.
organizing this whole
We'll get together.
cheerleader.
Catch up. Go Neon. Okay.
I hate that girl.
We hear a little bit of a backstory from Mary about Caroline Pizarchik and how all through high school they competed with each other over everything.
Seemed okay to me.
Oh no, you don't understand. Like Caroline Pizarchik haunted me. All through high school, we competed over everything. Not just cheerleading. It was grades. Thank you. It was boys. Oh, geez, please don't let her find out that Danny works here.
All right, well, I don't see her again until 5th period study hall.
Yeah,
but if I
I'm
do-
serious, Mike.
Well, I think that garners, we've got enough info on Caroline Pizarchik for us to go into who plays Caroline Pizarchik. That, of course, is Allie, don't call me Allison Sweeney. She went by Allison Sweeney most of her career. Apparently now she goes by Allie Sweeney. Sure, I suppose. Her career started back in 1984 on an episode of Simon and Simon as Lila, the second girl in 84. That's a good show. I like Simon and Simon. Fast forward through a whole bunch of stuff. She plays Caroline here in 2004. Now, Allie's career, and she was also on Days of Our Lives for an inordinate amount of time. 3,612 episodes. That's a lot. And Las Vegas loves their soap opera guest stars, where she played Sammy DeMara, a.k.a. Sammy Brady. I'm assuming at some point she got married to somebody named Brady at that point. Nowadays, you see, and she's very peppy, very blonde, very personable. Like, she's a good person to play this, because I'm sure on Days of Her Life, she had to backstab somebody. She played conniving a little bit at some point. It's a soap opera, I'm sure. And this character is not... She actually is, if you know these kinds of people, she actually is as she seems. And we'll get into that when we get into that. Nowadays, she is on the Hallmark circuit. If you watch all those Christmas movies, all the Hallmark Channel, or whatever the other channels are, maybe Mystery Channel, whatever, I don't know which channel, but her IMDb is full of movies like Murder, She Baked, aka the Hannah Swenson mystery series, which is the last thing that she's doing right now, which is in post-production, another one. She did a bunch of the Chronicle Mysteries movies, again, made for TV, pays a lot, good for her. She also was in the Wedding Veil series. Never heard of these. She wrapped herself up at least 3, it looks like, of these running series of TV movies. That's impressive. That's you know who the queen of the made-for-TV movie was back in like the 80s and 90s? It was Meredith Baxter Birney. And fast forward into the late 90s, early 2000s, Candace Cameron started to try to take her place and step into that role, and Allison Sweeney / Allie Sweeney now is trying to take that role. There's a whole lot. There's a couple of queens of the made-for-TV movie, and especially the made-for-TV movie series now. That's Allie. Her name is Allie. I know her as Allison Sweeney. It's hard to say Allie Sweeney, but fine. Allie Sweeney is Caroline Pizarchik, and we whoosh through a couple of cheerleaders to see Sam on the phone, and she's talking with somebody trying to, obviously a client, and she meets with a couple other clients, some who chartered a jet, the boys from Shepherd Polk.
Hey, oh, did you just get in?
We chartered a jet.
We
Brought the boys from the bond desk. Fourth quarter is through the roof.
Hey, how are you?
But, listen, if it's too much for you to handle, we could always spread the action around town.
Please, too much for me to handle. The gentleman of Shepherd Polk shall have my complete and undivided attention.
The main guy in the group there is worth noting. This actor is James Patrick Stewart. He wasn't up for VIP guest star this week only because I only have 4 slots. I don't know if you noticed this. This is a technical thing. I only have 4 slots. That'll fit on most platforms. So in order for the vote to count on as many platforms as possible so that you can vote. By the way, make sure you vote every week for your favorite VIP guest star. I put the polls up on all different platforms where you can find the Podecito that allows you to post stuff like a poll, the free ones, obviously, even Reddit, even Twitter, all of it, all the places. So go there and vote for your VIP guest stars. James Patrick Stewart goes back quite a ways. His first credit is the American Gandhi as Mark. There's no date for that. But the first one that he does have a date on is Galactica 1980. Ironically enough, in 1980, as Dr. Z for 7 episodes. He did 167 episodes of All My Children. That's probably where you know him best. But he was also, after he plays Dave Hunt here in this episode, or at the same time, in Father of the Pride, which is another Las Vegas-based show that was on NBC at the same time. CGI starred John Goodman and Cheryl Hines, and it's an interesting show. It's an interesting show. I, at the time, thought I loved it, and then I went back and watched it again, and I was like, oh, this show kind of sucks. But it's an interesting show. There are videos on it. It's on Peacock. Catch it if you're into television oddities. Fast forward through a career that has a ton of credits, where he's usually playing like an executive, sometimes a cop. His last known credit as of right now is in Blaze and the Monster Machines as Zeg, Town Trucks, and Ankylosaurus for 52 episodes. That was a voice role. You have seen him in General Hospital, boy oh boy, next to Sam. How about that? As late as 2024 for 650 episodes. That is James Patrick Stewart. She then gets another phone call, which she doesn't quite recognize, but the voice definitely sounds ominous.
This is Sam.
Hey, pretty girl. You at the MGM?
I'm at the Montecito. Who's this?
That makes me sad. You don't recognize my voice? It's me, Wes.
Don't call me again.
Ed just happens to be right there, and he overheard Sam's version of the phone call, and she says that he is in jail. Ed tips her that convicts, people in jail, cannot make direct phone calls. That is correct. It is collect only. And he asks her, why does she accept the calls? And she says that, Ed, you're freaking me out. And Ed tips her to something. He says, let me ask you something. Is his name Richard Allen Wesley?
How the hell do you know that?
It's all over the news. He escaped Nevada State Prison this morning.
And we get a freeze frame on Sam as we cut to the intro. We don't skip the intro. It's one of the greatest intros in all of television, don't you know? We do not skip the intro. If your streaming service is asking you to skip the intro, skip that service. Well, I mean, it's up to you. I can't tell you what to do. As we cut back from the intro, there's a news report on Richard Allen Wesley and the eccentric millionaire who, legend has it, buried millions of dollars of silver somewhere in the Nevada desert. Danny comes in with saying, I can't believe they're still talking about the silver. We used to go looking for it like it was a treasure hunt. So Wesley was in jail for 13 years. This is 2004, which means that Wesley went in 1991. Keep these numbers in mind. You don't have to. I've kept them in mind for you. Ed and Danny are talking to Sam about her connection to Grady, her connection to Wesley, who has spent 13 years in the joint after making this daring escape. And Ed does not want her involved or her to be chased around the casino by someone as dangerous as Richard Allen Wesley, which makes sense because Richard Allen Wesley is a very, very dangerous man. Sam is not worried about it, or at least she's trying to pretend like she's not worried about it. And so Ed and Danny are talking, and Ed asks Danny if Luis was on the force at the time of the murders. And Danny says he thinks so. Why? After Danny tells him that they should probably bring Luis in on this. Now, here's another thing to keep track of. So, if Luis was on the force at the time of the murders, the youngest Luis could have been in Nevada to be on the force at the time of the murders was 21 years old, which means, give or take, Luis, the character, at the youngest is 34 or 35. Ed wants to check in with Luis and see if Luis was either on the force at the time or if he knows anything about it, because Sam is not giving any information. She was young, she was old, she was there, she wasn't. Right. Sound familiar, Ed? Sure. But okay. We're going to try to find as much information as possible. We have Richard Allen Wesley's picture in the pit, and Nessa's there, and you see the boys from Shepherd Polk talking with a couple of football fans and have a problem with them because the guy in the driver's seat of the bus just took the dealer's bus card. I don't want to explain to you all the mechanics of blackjack, but that is a responsibility. It's a responsibility. If you're sitting in that seat, you are more responsible than anyone else at that table for what you do with the cards. So the way blackjack goes, if you're sitting away from the dealer, it doesn't matter which way you're sitting, but the way blackjack goes, the turns of play go clockwise. If you're looking at a clock, remember clocks? Anybody remember clocks? It goes clockwise. So the one who's furthest, the person who's, say, at the 3 o'clock position, has the least responsibility of anybody at that table. That person can kind of play anything they want to. And as a matter of fact, the other players almost want the other players to play whatever game they want to, because that allows you to see more cards. The more cards that have been played, the more you can kind of gauge which cards are left in the deck. That's not illegal. That's not even really card counting. You're just kind of noticing the pattern, right? You can kind of see which cards have already been played. And most people who aren't card counters can't really keep track further than just that one hand anyway. So that's not, and card counting isn't cheating anyway, but the casinos are dicks about that. Anyway, the furthest away is you can do whatever you want to. But if you're at the 9 o'clock position, which is where this guy is, this guy in the blue jersey, the Chelsea jersey, which we'll find out, you have the most responsibility because you're the last line of defense against the dealer. Everyone at that table really isn't playing against other players. Maybe they're playing against themselves, but not really. Everybody is playing against the dealer. And if you're the last person to go before the dealer gets to go, it's your responsibility to try to set up to make sure that the dealer busts out. That's the easiest way for the table to win, is to try to play your cards, hit or stand based on whether the dealer can bust or not. But a lot of times, you know how I talked about the dealer at the player at the first position can play whatever they want to. They can play to try to get their hands as close to 21 as possible. They can do all these crazy splits, the double downs, whatever. That last player realistically is more responsible for making the dealer bust than for getting his hand closer to 21. It doesn't matter if you get closer to 21 if the dealer busts. That's really the name of the game. The name of the game isn't actually 21. It's get the dealer to bust. So a lot of times, if you have a card that is close to, there's a little margin of error. I get iffy when I get around 13 or 14. The book says, I think 14 you stay or whatever. The book says 16 certainly is where people say you better stay so that the dealer can bust out, right? And some people play on instinct. Some people play on luck. Because guess what? Sometimes that other card is the card, the cards are what they're going to play. So you can, whatever the book says goes, that's the reason these places exist, is because luck exists. And sometimes you're wrong. And sometimes the instinct is the right thing to play. And sometimes the book is the right thing to play. And sometimes there is no right answer. And sometimes there is no wrong answer. But statistically speaking, this guy did the wrong thing. Based on the stats and on the book, he did the wrong thing. He tried to hit on 16 and took the dealer's bust card, which meant that the dealer got closer to 21 than everyone else at the table without going over. way too much explanation, but here we are. And so the player says, you can't boot me based on playing on instinct. And Nessa says, actually, I can kick you out for any reason whatsoever. And Dave is upset at the guys, and he's telling them to treat Nessa like a lady. And Nessa chimes in with,
No, it's all right. I mean, what do you expect from a Chelsea fan? Barbarians.
You're a Man United supporter. What, you're a Cockney Red?
No, actually, I was born in Manchester.
Yeah, home of a Queens on Canal Street.
Yeah, and the world's consummate football club.
Consummate. I think I'm gonna have to whip out my dictionary.
The only whipping that'll be going on around here is Manchester whipping Chelsea's arse in tomorrow's match.
Oh, you wish, love.
Now, why don't you fellas run along while you're still allowed in the Montecito?
so a lot of trash talk, a lot of football trash talking, not soccer, you filthy Americans, football trash talking. And so Nessa allows the guy to run off a little bit, before he says that
This blackjack's really just for wankers, darling, innit? You know what I mean?
Who's this guy, by the way? We've talked about the other guy, Dave Hunt. Who is this guy? Well, speaking of Dave's, this actor's name is David S. Lee. David S. Lee actually isn't from England. He's actually from South Africa, where he predominantly did work in television and theater, and he's acted all over the world, including Mozambique and Argentina. Incredible. In 95, he completed his postgraduate drama course in London, where he did Othello. As Othello, apparently. There's a history with Othello. It's a murky history. We won't go into that. What we will go into is another little tidbit here, which is the fact that he actually wasn't credited for this role. Well, let me explain. So he did the role, but the way the credits went, either the casting department, whoever wrote the credits down, did it wrong. So the person who got credited for this role of Jason the football hooligan wasn't David S. Lee. It was David Lee, a cameraman who works on Las Vegas. And then in the next episode, what they did, Sons and Lovers, is they gave David S. Lee a credit despite him not being in it whatsoever. David S. Lee has some acting that you may have seen him in. The first acting credit that we have for him is To the Death in 92 as guard number 7. He fast forwards a couple years and does this episode of Las Vegas. He then does an episode of one of my other favorite shows, Leverage, in 2009. He also did, get this, 13 episodes of General Hospital. Yes. Go see Sam as Winston Rudge. And the last credited role that we have for David S. Lee is in that trash-ass Mufasa movie that just came out as Mobo. Okay, great. The last thing you could see him in was The Last Ranger, which was a short. He plays Robert. That also came out in 2024. That's David S. Lee, the football hooligan. And as he goes off, one of his boys gets in Nessa's face and says a line I'll never forget.
Manchester United sucks. Chelsea.
It's very rhythmic. That's why I'll never forget it. And according to the Urban Dictionary, when he calls her a Cockney Red or asks if she is, according to Urban Dictionary, it's a description of individuals who come from a greater London but insisted in glory hunting and support Manchester United from the comfort of their own armchair. These individuals are usually born between 1980 and 1999. That's why he asked if she was a Cockney Red, but she says, I was born in Manchester. So we cut to the cheerleading practice for the Nevada State Cheerleading Championships, the Desert Spirit Nevada State Cheerleading Championships associated with the city of Las Vegas. And Caroline is going nuts on the cheerleaders. Mary and Delinda come in and talk about cheerleading. And Delinda says,
Can't believe you were a cheerleader. When I grew up, it was queer to cheer. In my school, it was perfectly heterosexual. But Danny liked your pom-poms.
What's with the pom-pom jokes?
Listen, they're easy. The pom-pom jokes. The music that we're listening to here, if you're watching on the original version, is a song called On Your Stereo by Wanted Dead or Alive. This song is incredibly hard to find, but you can in fact find it If you're watching on the DVD, it is the same thing. It's on your stereo. If you're watching on any of the streaming services, it's a song called High on Life by Inside Tracks. I'm assuming Inside Tracks meaning it's a production song, but we get to hear it. It's called High on Life. We then hear Caroline go in on Lizzie, telling her to focus and trying to get all the cheerleaders in to practice properly. She's got a glare on her face as she's trying to, as we see one of the cheerleaders go up. There's an ADR here. She's actually not talking, is Allison Sweeney, as the scene starts, but we hear a little ADR. And it was actually a pretty good one because I wouldn't have been able to tell if I didn't look directly at it. Caroline is going nuts with the cheerleaders, trying to get them to focus, etc. Delinda is introduced to Caroline by Mary, and Delinda then invites Caroline for drinks to hear about Mary in the high school days after she reveals that Danny works there.
Oh, hey, this is my friend Delinda.
Oh,
hey,
hi.
how are you?
Hi.
So you guys went to high school together?
Yeah, I know all of Mary's dirty secrets.
Well, did Mary tell you Danny works here too?
Danny's here?
Yeah.
I'll have to buy you 2 drinks to tell you all about Mary and Danny. Believe me, there is a lot to tell.
This entire scene, everybody in high school has had that person, that frenemy, as was coined after I left high school. Not long after I had left high school. Don't do the math. That person who you're not exactly mortal enemies with, like you're not going to fight them, you're not going to fist fight them, but it's it's the best version I could say. And by the way, which happens in work too, and in everyday life. Here's one of the biggest things that no one ever taught me. There are a couple TV shows that started to say it. Was that high school never actually ends. You just move schools. It's just a different school. You don't leave high school. If you go to college, it's a different high school. If you go whatever job you work at, if you're not owning the company, it's a different high school. You're dealing with the same they don't. It's the same thing. It's the dynamics are the same in real life. If out of work, you're at a club, your family, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And Mary is reverting right back kind of into that role that she was in high school. And Caroline is reverting back into that role she was in high school, where she's kind of taking over the proceedings, taking over the conversation. Probably she never left that position in high school. And that's why she's so comfortable still in that space, still in that headspace. Same for Mary. Well, Mary, I think, has evolved. Mary, I would imagine, has in some ways. Again, we've all evolved in some ways we haven't. Some ways we don't know about the evolution or the de-evolution, what we should change, what we should keep. It's a process. It's an evolution. And so Mary is reverting back to it. You can see the look on her face every time Carolyn says something about their past, especially the moment where Delinda reveals that Danny works at the Montecito. Oh my gosh. If looks could kill. Mary was never looked at Delinda in any kind of evil ways when she was sleeping with Danny. But she looked at her with pure, not hatred, but why did you do that in that moment? So Mary is trying to evade the situation and saying she doesn't have time to go out for drinks. But Carolyn says, I do, let's go, just the two of us. And then Mary, this is a great shot here.
Shoot. I don't have the time.
Well, we could just go, the 2 of us.
Sure.
Okay, great. Come on.
Actually, now that I think about it, could you just for a second? I have a window at 8:30.
Oh, that's great. Well, don't forget to bring Danny. Okay.
Lizzie!
By the way, was Caroline just going to ditch the practice right then and go out for drinks? Was she going to drink in the middle of her job? Is that what she was going to do? Okay, as a cheerleading practice coach. And so Mary just looks at Delinda, and Delinda acts like, what are I doing? And Mary just is like, how could you not understand what was happening in that moment? How could you not feel the vibes? We'll get back to that a little bit later. Let's let the dealer shuffle the deck for a second and we'll be right back. You're listening to Rainy Days Don't Get Me Down by Anthony Njoku. If you like what you're hearing, want to hear it again, hear more, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/anjoku. That's tinyurl.com/anjoku. It's Luis, Danny, and Ed now, and Luis tells Danny and Ed about Sam, Wesley, and Grady. And Luis reveals, after saying that he could get in trouble for saying it, that Sam testified and was a witness to the murders. But the reason why it wasn't on any record or anything was because she was 17 at the time of the murders. Given some space for a trial, etc., and time passing, and or when this episode was originally intended to air, I imagine it was still intended to air in 2004. We are looking at Sam being, if she was 17 at the time of the murders, and that was 13-ish years ago, Sam on the show should be about 30 or 31 years old right about now. Not Funk Soul Brother, but right about now, she should be about 30 or 31 in the scope of the show. So we then cut back to the casino floor, and Ed is telling Sam that she needs to cool it, that her job right now is to stay alive. And Ed has to reveal to her that, look, I know that you testified against Wesley. And I like this scene. I like these scenes. These are the kind of scenes that people gravitated towards when they talk about the relationship that Sam and Ed had, and probably spurned some of those shippers from the old Las Vegas Dashes series website that were like, oh, Sam and Ed shippers. This is a little fatherly thing. But Ed's relationship with Sam is an interesting one. Like, they have good chemistry on screen. I wouldn't say as romantic, but they certainly have good chemistry on screen because Ed brings out a different side of Sam, and or Sam respects Ed enough to follow Ed's orders, and feel not comfortable, but safe being, with the little bit of vulnerability that has to come out in certain moments like this. Sam isn't the Rock in this episode. Sam isn't her normal self where everything runs off her back, or she gets even with somebody, or she gets that evil smirk on her face. No, Sam is definitely scared, and you can see it in all of these scenes. Sam is frightened to death. And you can see it here. She's vulnerable. She has to look Ed in the eye and respect what he is saying, that she is not going to be walking around like a duck in a shooting gallery, but she's still putting up the fight.
I'm not staying in my suite.
Honey, it's your life I'm talking about.
No, Ed, this is my life that I'm talking about. Everything that I've worked for to get to where I am is my life. Now, I can either risk getting hurt or I can risk losing everything that I love. I'm not going to stop living my life because some fugitive may or may not be after me. I know you're going to take care of me.
That is a great line. And that, I think, resonates with everyone in the Podecito when it comes to Ed. And part of the reason why they have that kind of respect for him, because he is Big Ed DeLine. And they know that Ed will do anything for his staff and for his friends / family there at the Podecito. And it's almost like a father-daughter thing. Like, it's almost more father-daughter than Ed and Delinda even in this scene. Like, she, maybe not more, but definitely a father-daughter dynamic. We whoosh to drinks at the Mystique, and it is Carolyn, Pizarchik, Nessa, Delinda, Mary, and Mike. And Mike is standing next to Mary after they toast, and Mary cuts Mike a look that she's going to cut him a few different times. Caroline asks where Danny is, and Mary says he has to work.
Yeah, he had a situation. It sounded serious. Suspicious elderly woman on video poker.
I like a good line, and here comes Caroline. Poor Mary, still waiting for Danny, and Mary asks for some calamari. Anyone up for some squid? Meanwhile, everybody else at the bar is laughing. Carolyn, Nessa, Delinda, except for Mike. Mike comes in with...
Poor Mary. Still waiting for Danny. I guess some things never change. Don't tell me this has been going on since high school. Why don't we get ourselves some calamari? Anyone up for squid?
You know, the ink they spray is meant to look like a squid so they can swim away from trouble.
I want to hear about Danny.
And Mary cuts him a look like, thank you for your effort. Because Mike is... Remember I talked about the vibes? Delinda and Mary? Mike is in tune with Mary's vibes. Mike can feel the tension for Mary. Also, I think Mike remembered the conversation that they had earlier on. That also helps, right? So Mike, and he's the coolest guy in Vegas also. I haven't mentioned that in a long time. Mike is the coolest guy in Vegas. I've talked about Danny being the sexiest. Screw him. Mike is the coolest guy in Vegas. Anyway, Delinda asks about stories of Danny and Mary, the teenage years, and says she wants to hear it. Nessa says she wants to too. I thought about this because another favorite show of mine, Psych, did do teenage and childhood episodes based on the characters of Gus and Sean. And I thought about this and I was like, you know what? Las Vegas was around in the time where that wasn't an unspeakable thing to do. They were webisodes on Psych's version. That wasn't an unthinkable thing to do webisodes for the show. At like 5-minute intervals. Scrubs did it a few years later too, around the same time as Psych did. And it was a thing that happened on shows. Shows did webisodes occasionally for web content to drive you to the website of the show and of the network. Nowadays, it would probably just be given its own show on Netflix, right? It probably wouldn't be streaming on YouTube or anything like that if they decided to do it, and they probably would have decided to do it because, the franchise rights, right? I thought about this, and I'm like, I don't know that I'd want to know. I don't know that I want to see that one. I think the way Danny and Mary's relationship is best told through little hints in a backstory that we find out about. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think a prequel works for really any of these characters. As much as there is to dissect, and I'm sure you could do a whole show on the spy adventures of Ed DeLine, right? Edward Melvin DeLine, etc., right? But especially now that prequels are played out, I don't know that I want to know all the stuff like that. But to hear stories, to hear hints and stuff, that is fitting for them. Caroline goes on this diatribe that really kind of eviscerates Mary's soul. And Mike, this is why I love Mike. This is why Mike is one of the coolest guys in Vegas. Mike is non-verbally checking in on Mary. There's nothing he can do. There's nothing he can say, but just be in her vicinity and let her know that he understands how she's feeling and the embarrassment. Mary, I'm sure, is embarrassed right now. And a whole myriad of reasons. She's flying back to the time in high school that she doesn't want to fly back to. And we're hearing the backstory of Mary and Danny and how Danny treated Mary in high school. And Caroline is basically saying that that's the way he's still treating her today, which doesn't paint Danny in the best light, does it, Daniel McCoy?
Well, frankly, none of us on the squad could figure out what was going on with them. I mean, they'd spend every day together after school, but did they ever go on an actual date? I mean, even with the dances and stuff, Danny took Kiki Toronto to the junior semi-formal, and poor Mary spent the whole night collecting tickets in the parking lot. That's how it always was. Mary was Danny's Monday through Thursday girl, but come Friday night. Do you remember that? Yeah.
But now, by the time we get to the end of this story, even Delinda and Nessa are feeling kind of awkward hearing the story. Even they have to look away from Caroline. They have to kind of look in opposite directions, avert their gaze, avert their eyesight. They don't really want to look. They don't want to look at Caroline. They don't want to look at Mary. They can feel the vibes coming up. Caroline either can't feel the vibes or does not care. As she tells the story of prom, etc. Oh, he is not. Everyone has their own criteria for what they vote for VIP guest star. Everyone does. For me, it's about the acting. It's about the impact of the character. That's why I don't vote. I have my favorites, but I don't, because my favorites don't always win. But I have my favorites. But man, this Caroline chick, man, is she just twisting the high school knife into poor Mary. She asked Mary if you remember that. Mary says, yeah. And from one awkward moment to a dangerous moment, it's Sam in an elevator. She is on the line with somebody from Shepherd Polk, and a hand stops the elevator, and it's Richard Allen Wesley. And rather than here's and I think so Sam says, I'll call you back. Rather than staying on the phone with this person and trying to alert him to danger or anything like that, is that her professionalism? Is that her trying to find a way out? What is that? Is that her, like, how awkward would that be? How would he respond? Would he think to respond in the proper way? There's a question here of why Sam got off the phone as quickly as she did when she's about to be trapped in an elevator with Richard Allen Wesley. But she does say, I'll call you back. And there's Richard Allen Wesley saying, hey, pretty girl. As he steps into the elevator, and Sam says, or the elevator's already stepped into, cameras are watching. If you think you're going to hurt me here. And Wes says that he's not going to hurt her. Why would he want to hurt her? The bell dings and they go up to another floor. Some people get in. And Sam pushes her way out and uses the other people that are trying to get in as a not a distraction, but a barricade to get out of the room or out of the elevator. She gets into the room and she locks the door, and Richard Allen Wesley is standing there saying, this isn't over yet. Now, mind you, this is Sam's room. I would imagine by the time we cut to the next scene, Sam has moved to a different room.
I'll call you back.
Hey, pretty girl.
Cameras are watching if you think you're gonna hurt me.
Why would I want to hurt you, Sam?
Plane ride was about 2.5 hours.
I just need to sleep.
Move! You bitch! This ain't over yet!
Let's talk about Richard Allen Wesley. We heard about him. Now we've seen him. Now let's talk about him. Richard Allen Wesley is played by an actor named Wade Williams, who has been in a ton of stuff. The first credited role that he has is on Murphy Brown as a Messenger back in '96. Fast forward a few years to this role of Richard Allen Wesley. Along the way, he did 14 episodes of The Bernie Mac Show, which you might know him from as Father Cronin, the main priest that the family talks to at the private school that they send the kids to. He was also, you might actually really know him from Prison Break. He did 62 episodes of Prison Break as Brad Bellick. And in this episode, he just happened to do a prison break. Look at that. Look at that. He also did Monk, not right after like some people did, but he also did an episode of Monk. He also did the Prison Break video game. I didn't know they had one of those. Along the way, since then, he's done a lot of animated stuff for DC as different characters, Batman, some Batman animated movies, a couple of Superman animated movies. He did a few of those. He then fast forwarded in 2016 with a movie with our very own sexiest man in all of Sexyville, in the sexiest city. Yes, Josh Duhamel. He did a movie with Josh Duhamel called Spaceman in 2016, where he played Tom Fulton. The last thing you could see him in as a credited role was The Last Manhunt, where he played Reche, Reche. That is Wade Williams. He also did an episode of another one of my favorite shows, Leverage, and I know him from that episode because I see that episode all the time. He generally plays cops, thugs. He played a priest once, but generally plays cops and criminals. Mostly criminals is Wade Williams, and he is very, very, very good at it here. He's got our Sam Marquez frightened literally for her life. So we take a look at the Vegas skyline. That's a beautiful skyline. And we whoosh through. I miss that skyline. That's a beautiful skyline. As we whoosh through to a room, I'm guessing not the same room because that would just be crazy. But Sam and Ed and Danny are there, and Sam is still taking phone calls about her clients and trying to go out and meet her clients. But no, she is confined to the room for the weekend, regardless of how big it is for the Montecito's profits, regardless of how big it is for these brand new clients from Shepherd Polk who might make their way back to the Montecito. They won't, which is why Jason Patrick Stewart is also, well, he could conceivably be a VIP guest star, but there are others that fit the bill a little bit better than him, but they're not coming back, and we'll get into that shortly. But she is confined to the suite, and this is another thing that plays into the father-daughter dynamic with Sam and Ed is when he confines her there, it's almost like a daughter being grounded by her dad. That's the dynamic. That's how it feels, and it plays pretty well.
Listen, this is how it goes. You stay in this room. You stay in this room until Wesley is behind bars. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Good. Now let's go.
Excuse me. Yeah, excuse me.
And she ends the scene with "Yes, sir." And I think that "Yes, sir" helps. So we cut then to the cheer practice that is going to go wrong. The music here, I can't find anywhere. I'm pretty sure it's a production song of some kind that says "mix it up" a lot. But it's not even the song that they're going to use in the competition, so I don't even know why they decided to do it. But we see the cheerleaders try to do their routine, and they're going through the line and the motion, and we are focusing on one in particular that's called out by Caroline, Lizzie Posner. She is coaching them, telling them to lock out. She's definitely hard on the girls. One of the cheerleaders falls from the perch there, and Caroline goes nuts, and she says she's going nuts on them.
Lizzie Posner, you are the captain of this squad. I expect more from you. Well, don't just stand there. Let me see your neon clap. Go, neon. Bzz, go, bzz, go. Did you learn nothing in cheer camp? Where is your clap reverb? Come on, go, bzz, go, bzz,
I know you can go, bitch.
By the way, that's your neon clap. Is that supposed to be buzz go? What? That's weird. Anyway, we see Caroline basically getting this girl to the point where she's almost in tears. It's probably harsh for a cheer coach, but I will put this out there in defense of Caroline a little bit. Her husband was a football player. Football coaches, at least back then, and in the NFL now, way harder than that. Are you way hard? Are you? I played Pop Warner for 3 years up until I was 13 years old. 13? Was 13 the last one? 13, 14. 13. That is 13. And the stuff that they told us, the verbal abuse that we got at 11 years old. You crazy? I would make this look like Sesame Street. But okay, sure. Cheerleading is different, probably. But actually, probably not. In real life, it's probably not. In real life, it probably is this. It's probably worse because football, they cursed a lot at us and they dogged us out, right, with like superficial stuff to toughen us up. Cheer, you got to remember who's in charge of cheer, who the coaches are in cheer, and if they're anything like Caroline Posner, how she's accidentally ripped Mary apart. When the laser is focused on, the cheer coaches, probably, especially back then, probably caused all sorts of psychological damage on these girls. Like the football coaches, as a guy playing football, you take it differently and you run some laps. The girls on these squads probably developed a whole lot of psychological issues from coaches like Caroline Pizarchik. And Mary has to step up and say that time's up for practice. And Caroline, after Mary says it's not right, tells her,
I'll tell you what's not right. I sat in bustier in the daytime, but you don't hear me telling you that's got to go.
I looked this up, actually, and the protocol for wearing a bustier may have been different. I don't know, may have been different in the early 2000s, late 90s or whatever. Nowadays, it is perfectly socially acceptable to wear a bustier anytime you want to, day or night. As a matter of fact, there are articles about how you can switch a bustier from daytime to nighttime and what you can do with it and how you can wear it and all these different accessories and different fashion choices you can make with it to go from day to night, like a lot of other women's clothing. So, Caroline. Anyway, she goes back to Lizzie and she asks her, what kind of captain are you? The captain of the Titanic. And you can see Lizzie's face starting to crack. She's trying to hold the smile together and she's sniffling and she looks around and she runs off. Now is a good time to talk about who this Lizzie Posner is.
Lizzie, you know what kind of captain you are? You're like the captain of the Titanic. If you bring the ship down, I swear you're going to regret it for the rest of your pathetic little life.
Lizzie Posner is played by the inimitable Amy Garcia. You know who Amy Garcia is. Amy Garcia has been around for a while. She's been in a lot of seminal stuff that you remember for a long time. Her first credited role was in something called The Homecoming in '96 as Pam. She then went on to do a whole bunch of stuff, including American Family as young Nina for 5 episodes, and Cadet Kelly as Gloria in 2002. She was also in All About the Andersons. That's where I first recognized her. That's where I first saw her, was in All About the Andersons, because I liked that show. That was Anthony Anderson and John Amos. For the time, it was really funny. Nowadays, it's all right. But for the time, felt like it was really not biting, but definitely a funnier show than the 16 episodes belies it. She then does this as Lizzie Posner. Yada, yada, yada. After this, you might remember her from... That was different. Anyway, yada, yada, yada. She goes on to do a couple other things. You might remember her from... Oh, I see. Yada, yada, yada. She goes on to do a couple other things. You might remember her from... The George Lopez Show. That's right. She took over for Carmen the last couple episodes as the teenage girl of the show. Veronica Palmero, their cousin, for 20 episodes. She then does a couple other things. Yada, yada, yada. Skip a few gimmicks. And that sounds more familiar. Yada, yada, yada. She goes on to... Yeah, that's what I thought. Yada, yada, yada. She goes off to Hawaii Five-O, the Scotty version. Yes, Dee Dee for an episode. She also betrays the show of Las Vegas to do another show based on Las Vegas, but it was that show. It was the show that came on a couple of seasons after our Las Vegas was unrightfully canceled. She goes on, the sets are expensive. Oh. She goes on to do 13 episodes as Yvonne Sanchez in that show, Vegas, with Dennis Quaid and Michael Chiklis. That was a terrible show, but whatever. You might also recognize her from the 34 episodes she did as Jamie Batista in Dexter. Yes, the good version of Dexter. Yada, yada. She's been in a lot of stuff. Yada, yada, yada. She goes on to, I recognize her from all this other stuff, right? But I did, and the stuff I recognize her from, she typically kind of plays the same general character. She got to do it 80 times for Lucifer, yes, where she plays Ella Lopez. Not connected to George Lopez, but she plays Ella Lopez and Tommy Stompanato. That was a weird episode, but yes, she did, of a show called Lucifer, for 80 episodes. And I think this was the last time, really, well, that and Dexter were the last couple of times where she had a prominent role where, those are like the first couple of times she had a prominent role where she couldn't play teenager anymore. She played teenager for a long time, and looked like it too. Like, she was ageless. I think I found out what her real age is from a random post. I think I found it, but she was teenager for a long time. That paid her rent for a long time in Hollywood. The last thing that you can see her in, she's got something in post-production right now where she does a voice credit. The last thing you can see her in is Cases of Mystery Lane, Death is Listening, which is a TV movie where she plays Bertie K. So she's trying to get into that Hallmark TV movie money too. And that is probably the biggest thing going in Hollywood these days. That is Amy Garcia, aka Lizzie Posner, as she is basically, her emotion, she's sliced to death in a small amount of time, the way Mary was by Caroline Pizarczyk.
Why don't you take a little break?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'm gonna stretch the legs, wash the face, refocus.
There you go.
I assume you're interested in large amounts of money.
It's Vegas, who isn't?
If you like the podcast and you want to help support it, you can send a Cash App, join our Patreon or Subscribe Star, or buy us a coffee. Just search The Podecito on all those platforms. Nessa is, she is just annoyed by the Chelsea crew who are walking through her casino into Belisara. They are chanting, they are singing, they are having a good old time, probably after some warm beers, and they are about to be tossed out of the Montecito. But Jason, the football hooligan, we'll call him Jason, says,
"Oh, come on, love! There's no other hotel on the strip that's showing a Chelsea-Manchester game." Which,
in 2004, I kind of buy, but also kind of not. Like, yeah, but football's still a sport. Yeah, maybe it is. It's not as big in America yet, so maybe it is. He tells Nessa that she's not going to kick out a fellow countryman. She says, "Watch me," and he says,
"You're ashamed."
You what is an expression on the internet for a while, and also in England. It's a real expression, and it means what it sounds like it means. It means, what did it to skirt around censor? Not that I don't know what are we censoring for, but it basically means, what did you just say to me? How dare you? Basically. And by the way, I love her take on that. It is terrific. The guy gets in her face and starts talking more trash about Manchester United and Beckham running off with a Spice Girl. And Nessa comes back with,
Beckham may have left, but I'd take Giggs and Van Nistelrooy over Hasselbank and Duff any day of the week.
Oh!
You know what? Let him go. Only so I can have the satisfaction of watching you, as my American friends say, suck ass when Manchester demolishes Chelsea. So you can stay and watch the game, on the condition that from now on you stay off the casino floor.
Her diatribe is great there.
And you put your shirt on.
Great take, great line. So Mary is walking through the casino and she sees Lizzie Posner laying up against a slot machine, basically crying her eyes out. The music is on all versions. Good job on this one, although there's a reason for it. It's called Her Life Story, and it's by Universal Production Music. So Universal already owned it. That's why it's all the way through. But it's a good song. I like it. It's especially for a scene like this. It's a really good one, actually. And Mary and Lizzie go over the incident that we just saw in the competition. And Lizzie tells Mary that there's something recently that's gotten into Caroline, that she's been incredibly strict and hard on the team. But
I don't know, it just seems like cheerleading is supposed to be fun, like even the word cheering as in good cheer.
Here's an interesting thing about Amy Garcia in this one. Normally, she's played, the characters I've seen her play are all these kind of peppy, light, fun characters. All the ones I've seen, including in Lucifer, where it's almost like she's still trying to play a teenager, but she's not. She's a forensic doctor on Lucifer. She's a forensic specialist on Lucifer. So obviously not a child anymore, but still kind of playing a teenage, that peppy, happy, up-go-lucky female character, right? This one, it almost feels like she's overcompensating, because there's definitely a few times where she's playing what an adult version of a teenager is, like not an actual teenager a little bit. And this is where it's like, this is the first little hint of it in this one, like of good cheer. We'll see another one later, but this is the first. Pay attention to that. She's interrupted for a second, and we see a look on Lizzie's face, and we don't know exactly what that look is, but she asks Mary, "Do you think I'll never amount to anything?" And Mary says,
No. Don't be ridiculous. If you speak your mind and you follow your heart, you can do anything you want.
Oh, Mary. Oh, how could you not love her? How could you not love Mary? Oh, how could you not love her? So Mary asks Lizzie a question, and she asks,
Now, can I ask you a question? This bustier is cool, right?
Well, it is a little revealing.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's just...
I like that last little bit with Mary, because again, first off, that's great physical acting by Nikki Cox. Second, it again reveals the insecurities that someone like Mary would have, especially someone as physically built as Mary might have. With those, it almost feels like after she's gotten the confidence in her body to display it that way, she now gets a little kick to that confidence to now not show it that way, which doesn't track, because I don't know when Mary won't be wearing a bustier on this show. Certainly not in the first season. She is almost like, that's her costume, is bustier and other. So if she did change her mind about it, she looked at her closet and was like, well, I got too many of these to not wear them, so I'm still just gonna have to go with it. We cut to a scene in the room where Sam is holed up in, where Delinda is going to go over the specifics to try to help Sam out with keeping track of her clients for the weekend. And Sam tells Delinda not to worry about the guys from Shepherd Polk. Why don't you relax?
How hard could it be to buy drinks for people? I mean, isn't that pretty much all a casino host does? That's a joke, right?
And Sam cuts her a look. She absolutely cuts her a look after saying that she can't just try and relax. Of course she can't, because Richard Allen Wesley is there, and Mike and Danny go over, not the specifics, but Mike is told by Danny to kind of keep a lookout for him in case he sees Wesley, and Mike says he's down for it, but he needs a couple more details because it is Sam we're talking about. As he's about to leave, he sees Caroline get served with some papers, and before Mike can check on her and see if she's okay, he's met with some keys by one of the valets, and she's already off. We see Ed about to go into Mystique, and Delinda is taking care of the guy from Shepherd Polk, and he spits out some very fast information on some stuff that he wants with some bets and the NBA. Now, I know it's the NBA. Delinda doesn't know it's the NBA. I didn't catch all of what he said, but I caught a couple words. Once I figured out, oh, Mavs, Knicks, oh, that's NBA. He wants NBA stats. Go to the sports book or have someone go to the sports book and get you the stat sheet for the NBA. Even if there's detail, and give me everything you have on the NBA games today. That's simple enough if you know that those are NBA teams. But Delinda obviously doesn't know that those are NBA teams. And he said it was entirely too fast to write anything down. He's probably used to that, especially in his investment banking role. He's probably used to that. And so Delinda, her train of thought is broken by Ed, who is asking why she got rid of $3,200 a night suites for 4 guys who have no history of play at the Montecito. If you're wondering, $3,200 a night in today's money is $5,389.20 per night. Good God. Per night? Per night? I wish I would. I wish I would. That's almost as much as they charge normal people for rooms now, if you include the resort fees. Anyway, Ed is upset with her, but he lets her know to check with VIP services later, and she tries to ask,
Daddy, do you know where Paige's Nick's Jazz Club is?
But she's lost it. Her train of thought is completely lost as she passes Mary, who is trying to catch up with Caroline, who snipes at Mary immediately. But this time, not flippantly, not unconsciously. This time, she's definitely flipping out at her. Basically because she's trying to keep her guard up, because she's dealing with whatever she's dealing with the papers that she was served. In her sniping at Mary, she says something that's very interesting to me.
I know you're still waiting on Danny McCoy. Same boy, different parking lot. Well, better parking lot than the street corner, right, Mary?
Now that is an interesting line to say. And it stops Mary dead in her tracks. And it's an interesting line to say when you consider Mary Connell original occupation on the show, pre-filming, where Mary was originally an escort. We know as the pilot got filmed, or before the pilot got, the final decision before we saw it was that Mary was not an escort. You want an escort, you go to the other end of the bar. But how close was Mary Connell to being an escort before she decided not to? That brings up that question. Did Caroline know something that we didn't? What did that mean? Why did it stop Mary in her tracks if she was nowhere near that line of work? What don't we know there? Interesting little tidbit that I just wondered. I was like, that struck Mary pretty hard. Why did it strike her that hard? We cut to surveillance. Ed and Danny are looking over video footage from the police, as well as photos of the crime scene where Wesley sliced Grady's throat. And they go over the footage of Wesley in the elevator. And Wesley didn't hurt her, actually. He didn't go for anything. He had a chance to, but he didn't. Why not? Why did Wesley not attack then? So they cut to the room with Sam again, and Sam finally reveals it takes some time. Ed has to push her. Ed has to hammer into her exactly what Sam was looking for, or what Wesley was looking for. It's the silver. Danny says it's ridiculous. There is no silver. Here's the thing, Danny. We've established now that Sam would know better than you if the silver existed. Why don't you just say, does it exist? Is there silver? She would know. She was there. You know that she was there. Ask her. Don't just assume. Ask her. Sam reveals that Grissom thought she was 20. because she had scammed her way in by saying she was 20, even though she was only 17. And so because of that, she lived with Grissom, and I assume they had a relationship. She tells the story of how she told Wes that there was silver somewhere after Wes tried to tell Sam that she was just another Gardy's girls. And Sam, in a fit of being a teenager, said, "Nuh-uh, there's silver. Gardy told me."
And so, you know, to shut him up, I said, "So if Gardy doesn't care about me, then why would he tell me where he buried his precious silver?" I know, it's stupid. I was 17.
Danny is tasked with staying with Sam in that room, in that moment, by Ed, as he's going to try to configure the next play to make. Sam is taking a nap. She wakes up. She doesn't hear Danny. She asks where he is. She turns the corner, and she sees Danny's throat cut.
Danny.
This is a good little bit of makeup here from the department. They did a pretty good job here. We get the dolly zoom in shot. We get some blood spurting from Danny's neck. That's how good it is. Like, they did a really good job. It looks as good as it can look for 9:30-ish on a Monday night in 2004, right? It's not going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre gory, but definitely. And there's Wesley with telling Sam to shh as we cut from that scene.
Hey, pretty girl.
Wesley is definitely a creepy character, and we hear the classic wake up moment where it was all just a dream. Danny is over Sam, and she wakes up and she has to calm herself by looking at the strip. Luckily for Sam, Danny is there, and he consoles her at the window. We cut to the cheerleading competition, and we see the Central High Wildcats finish up their routine. There is a Central High School, but it's in Washington, not in Nevada. We see Mary come into the competition, and she runs into Luis and asks what Luis is doing here.
Now let's hear it for the two-time
Hey, what are you doing here? Come here.
Police business?
I'll bet.
Why don't you have a seat there and get comfortable for a minute?
Chris. Calmate, Chris. But he's apparently there, we'll just say, to watch, and we see the River High Tigers come up to the stage and do their cheer routine. There is a River High. Well, it's Bear River High. Bear River High is in the joint school district with California and Nevada in Grass Valley, technically California. So yes, there is a River High. So we see the cheer routine. It is very choreographed and I assume on points. I'm not a big aficionado of cheerleading routines and what to look for in competitions. While they're doing this set, though, to the song Biddy Bodie Beady Boo, B-I-D-I Bo B-I-D-I-B-O-D-I B-I-D-I-B-U, the Satollo mix, S-A-T-O-L-L-O mix by Bubbles on the original and DVD version, and production song on the streaming version. That's really the only thing you hear on the production song, which may be AI, I'm not sure, is Let's Get Lucky Baby for a high school cheerleading competition.
You want to explain yourself?
All right, thank you. I didn't write the song though, but I get it on that one. I get it. As they're doing the competition, we see Luis talk about how the coffee that Mary and Luis had was really great. Maybe dinner next time. And she looks Luis up and down and says, "You have my number. Remember the coffee? Remember the coffee? Remember the coffee? Remember when Danny was tripping out on the Die Fast, Die Furious episode? Remember? They had their coffee. Now they're going to have some dinner. Good for you, Mary. Good for you. You're not waiting in that parking lot anymore. Anyway, she is asking where Vegas South was. They haven't checked in yet. And if they don't check in, they're going to be disqualified. By the way, there is no Las Vegas South. I looked it up. But she looks around. Mary is a little bit concerned. She looks around, doesn't see anybody from Vegas South except for Lizzie. She's sitting up in the stands, and I guess sitting up there with a couple of the other neons. There is no Vegas South neons. And she makes her way up past a couple of older gentlemen in the stands. I'm going to assume that they're there for their nieces or daughter or granddaughter or something, but
I suggest you sit down.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you, Chris Hansen. Yes, thank you. Mary sits there and asks, why haven't they checked in yet? And it's because the Neon said they're not competing.
What's going on? Why haven't you checked in? We're not competing.
Why not?
Because of what you said.
What I said?
You said we shouldn't cheer if it wasn't fun.
I don't think I said that.
Yeah,
No.
You said if it's not fun, why do it?
But I meant that rhetorically.
Tora, what?
No, rhetorically. Like, all I meant was for you to remember to have fun out there. That's all. I wasn't telling you to quit.
So that last look and that last Retora and stuff is what I'm talking about when I said that Amy Garcia kind of played this like an adult would play a teenager. And especially that shot specifically and that scene specifically. She reminded me of Nicole Sullivan from Mad TV. You know who the blonde from Mad TV was all over the first, I forget how many seasons, 5 or so? Nicole Sullivan. You've seen her in other stuff. Nicole Sullivan's been in a whole bunch of stuff. The facial expressions, the way she did the face, the way she kind of did the kind of dumb face, definitely. And the way they wrote that, if you're in high school in 2004 and you didn't know what rhetorically meant, I question it. But yeah, she definitely played that literally like an adult would play a high schooler, because that's exactly the way Nicole Sullivan played those kinds of characters. We cut to Sam and Danny in the suite where Sam is holed up in, and Danny is saying, Sam is just kind of freaking out about what happens if Wes finds her, comes back into the casino and looks for her.
What if Wesley doesn't get caught? What am I supposed to do? Stay locked up in my room indefinitely? I mean, he's the one who's supposed to be locked up, not me.
He will be soon.
Yeah, okay, Danny. He got past you once.
Listen to me. I promise you he's not going to get back into the Montecito. Okay?
And that's a cool scene. And we whoosh out from that suite in the Montecito into the parking lot. And there's Wes in the parking lot in one of the limos. And Mike, of all people, who was just told by Danny to take a look out for anybody like Wes, for Wesley, if he's on the premises, doesn't even bother to look in the limo. He just pats it on the roof and says, you got to move along, which I understand. He's doing his job. He can't look at absolutely everything. But man, right there, he didn't see him. We cut to the elevator bay. Nessa has to get in an elevator, and she's caught in the elevator with Jason, the football hooligan. I like this banter back and forth. It's really good.
You.
You first.
No, you, I insist.
You resting up before you're dressing down later?
Dressing down, I had some tough talk. Bit of a stuck-up little priss, aren't we, love?
Yeah, not as prissy as Chelsea's defenders.
I think it's you needs a bit of dressing down. Maybe then we can see what's been stuck up your ass.
Oh, sticks and stones.
That's what's up there, isn't it? Yeah.
Good elevator banter. I liked it. And Nessa, her facial expressions are really good there. And as they come out of the elevator, he grabs her to get her to hold on a second and asks about putting up a little bit of a wager. And of course, she can't wager on sporting events. And the bet is if Chelsea wins, then she has to go out with him. And if Manchester wins, then he has to go out with her.
And even if I were allowed to, what if I win?
Darling.
How is it a bet if I get the same thing whether I win or lose?
Yeah, but you're feeling a little tempted, aren't you?
If by tempted you mean repulsed, then yeah, I'm really tempted. I'll see you at kickoff.
I'm sorry. There is some chemistry here between Nessa and this soccer hooligan. Like, I know he's they're doing what they're doing here. It comes across as, remember The Breakfast Club? That classic movie, The Breakfast Club. That's what's coming off as. That's what it's coming off. It's coming off as a little bit of a tease from not even The Breakfast Club, but it's a tale as old as time, as the boy pulling the pigtails of the girl in preschool or kindergarten, right? It's because he likes her. I don't know why. I never did that with girls I liked. If I liked a girl, I acted like I liked a girl. I didn't do the punch her in the arm thing. If I liked a girl, I liked a girl. But some guys did do that. And not some guys, a lot of guys did that. So much so it became a trope that's what guys, your boys, little boys, did when they suddenly discovered that they liked girls. That's kind of what we're seeing here on screen. And we even cut back to the guy, Jason, as he looks at as Nessa as she leaves, because he's even if she's not. So let's say she's not. She's certainly not. He is. He's definitely infatuated with Nessa, and I don't blame him. That's Nessa. That's 2004 Marsha Thomason. God. They don't get any hotter than that. They really don't. They really actually don't get any hotter than that. Hold on a second. Let's get a new deck in here, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe, and this bitch the whole night. They be playing both sides, trusting them, and I stay by my bro side. Can't fuck with the whole tide. We be with the whole squad. Can't let them win. Yeah, this shit's a whole vibe.
You're listening to Whole Vibe from Jesse Evans's album Space Jams. If you like what you're hearing, you want to hear more, hear it again, or both, just go to tinyurl.com/EvansVibe. That's tinyurl.com/EvansVibe.
I'm back on my bullshit. No mic, but I'm shooting and I'm back with a full clip. Pay attention to the flows I'm delivering. Cut off of my bros to my hoes.
We cut to the Belisara, and Caroline Pizarchik is looking at the letter that she got, and Mary comes in to try to talk to her, but Caroline immediately fires back and cuts back at Mary and asks her why she had the neons turn on her, and that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And Mary finally is talking to Caroline about not being in high school anymore, that they got to cut the stuff out, and Caroline says, unfortunately. Mary says, if the highlight of your life is high school, then you haven't lived enough. And I get that. But I also get where Caroline's coming from here. Because Caroline is talking about...
It's just... I feel like if I take it off, it's like I'm letting go of all the promise that my life had.
Man! Is that a line or what? There really is something to the idea of potential wasted. There really is something to the idea of potential deferred. And there really is something to the idea of thinking you have reached it, thinking you have gotten the goals that you wanted, and it turns out, basically growing up and realizing it's not what you thought it was. Right? And they're not even that far removed from high school. Right? If we think about the timeline, and this is pretty quick, if we're being perfectly honest. So if you think back to the conversations Mary and Danny had about Danny leaving for the Marines, pretty close to after high school, right? About 5 years ago or so. So this is about 5 year-ish, 5 years, 2004, 98-ish, about a 5 to 6 year window. A lot happened in that 5 to 6 years. You know what I mean? And Caroline's basically lived a life. And now that pocket of life that she's lived is over, and she doesn't know what to do with the rest of it. she doesn't know that there is. She doesn't mentally realize that there is the rest of it to live. And to sit in that position where I've thought about this myself a lot lately, especially with that birthday that just passed looming, of potential, what you did with it, how much more of it you have, and for what. And that is a conversation that anybody who has potential to do things has had to have with themselves multiple times in their lives. And a scenario you've had to face multiple times in your life. And this may really be the first time Caroline's had to face it. Look at the writers of Las Vegas. But Mary is going to at least try to help Caroline with the thing that's right in front of her, which is the cheer competition. And part of that potential, though, is why Caroline's pushing them so hard. Because she's saying that the one thing she's got going for her is that coaching job, and she doesn't want them to turn out like her. She wants them to reach their full potential, so she's pushing them so. That's why she's pushing them so hard, which, maybe too hard, certainly too hard. And we've seen that in Lizzie Posner and her reaction and the way the rest of the team thinks about her, right? I've seen where you can go, bitch, right? Remember that line? Caroline is definitely, she's in tatters, she's crying, but Mary comes back with,
Do you remember what we used to say when our team was down in the fourth quarter? Raise those voices, scream and shout. We may be down, but we're not out.
Nikki Cox is great. Nikki Cox is tremendous. So we cut to the casino floor, and the boys at Shepherd Polk are at the craps table, and Delinda even has to do the blowing of the dice for good luck. And she's on the phone with one of the clients, and she's trying to get some stuff done for those clients that she's trying to get some tickets to for something, but the suites were taken away. Remember the suites that Ed was talking about, the $3,200 a night suites? They were taken away. Now, Ed, here's the thing. Ed didn't tell her that he was taking the suites away. He clearly just took them away. He didn't say it, which is that's on Ed. Ed didn't tell her, hey, so I have to kick them out. That's not what he said. He didn't say anything. He just left. Bad form, Ed. Bad form. Anyway, now the boys of Shepherd Polk are upset, and they're saying that they're going to have to take their money to the Palms, which was, remember, the hot spot around that time. And so Sam calls to check in on things, and she hears what's going on in the background. Meanwhile, Danny has to go to the bathroom, but Sam is determined she's going to go downstairs and take care of the situation because that's millions of dollars that Delinda is basically letting walk out the door. Danny is trying to tell her that she cannot leave, but she's definitely going to leave. Danny knows she's definitely going to leave, but he can't sit there with her. So Sam immediately takes off where she shouldn't to go find the boys from Shepherd Polk. In the meantime, Caroline has to tearfully apologize to her neons, who I assume have now decided that they're going to compete with the apology. I think they feel it. I think they accept it. Mary then gives them a pep talk and tells them, this is a great pep talk by Mary, actually.
You have the chance to make history today. You could bring Vegas South cheerleading where it's never been before to nationals. What do we say, Neons? Are we going to win this thing or what?
Delinda's out front with Mike trying to find the boys from Shepherd Polk. But here's where the okie doke happens. Because Richard Allen Wesley sits there and overhears and just happens to overhear that Delinda is trying to get Sam's clients back on track. And directs Delinda to direct Sam to his limo. And he'll be waiting around back. Oh, boy. The inexperience of Delinda in that particular position has set things up quite nicely for our boy Richard Allen Wesley. Luis is there and in surveillance, and he tells the boys that a limo driver has just been jacked for his limo and his uniform not long before then. So now they're on the lookout for Richard Allen Wesley in the parking lot. He's not in the parking lot. He's around back. Sam finds him, and Wes has a gun, and she's got to get in that limo right now. Grissom's land is where they're headed. Richard Allen Wesley is talking to Sam the whole time, saying that he knows that the silver is somewhere on the land. And Sam says that he should just turn himself in. Wesley says that, great, I'll just serve out the rest of my 35 years. Well, guess what? 35-year sentence from then means that Richard Allen Wesley, had he stayed in jail, would just about be getting ready to get out right now. That would leave him around about 2026 as when he would leave prison. Man, 35 years sounded like a long time back then, didn't it? Sounded like a long time. Anyway, wasted potential. Anyway, Sam is trying to keep up the chatter with Richard Allen Wesley, and we find out why, because she's still technically on the phone with Delinda. So Sam, being very smart this time, as opposed to when she was in the elevator, stayed on the phone so that there's some kind of signal so that you can find out where she is. She stayed, very good girl, Sam. This time she learned her lesson from the elevator. She's still on the phone. While the reception may not be great, just based on where they are, the boys in the surveillance room are able to kind of patch it in and try to at least keep it recording on their line. Sam is leaving clues. Why are you taking me to Eagle Springs? That's on the 93. Tell Luis to get a chopper. Good job, Ed. Sam tries to keep the chatter a little bit, as she said that there is no silver. She just made it up because she was 17, and Wesley slaps her.
Why would you go around bragging about it?
Because, Wesley, I was 17. I didn't know what I was doing. I wanted people to think that Gardy confided in me like I was special. I made it up.
What the heck was that? Bitch.
Okay.
Richard Allen Wesley put his hands on one of our queens of the Montecito. And I know at least one fan who is not going to like that one bit. I don't like it one bit. But the situation is what the situation is. And Sam, with her toughness, is keeping her through this. Wesley says, spill your guts or I'll spill them for you. And we hear a few more clues where they kind of figure out exactly where Sam and Richard Allen Wesley would be. And then we cut to the competition where the Neons are performing. Now, remember when I talked about the technical issues I have with this show? Here is the biggest one. Really the one, but the biggest one. I think I mentioned a couple of those earlier. But the biggest issue I have with this is the music that is used here, because yes, we're cutting to the cheerleading competition and we see Mary and Pizarchik in the stands watching the competition, but we also cut back to Sam and Wesley in the Centennial area, wherever, Eagle Springs, wherever, to find the silver. The dichotomy of the energy in these scenes is vastly different. The music that would work in a scene like this, because that range of the emotions for these two scenes is so wide, and so they're almost polar opposites. Almost. Like they're almost as polar opposite as you can get. Right? Very close. So the song, the music choice that you would use here has to be very specific. Has to be able to fit both these scenes if you're going to cut to both these scenes. Especially now. This is an era in the early 2000s where I talked about this in the previous episodes, I think the pilot, where they're trying to do more cinematic stuff. Music is very important. It's vitally important. It's why I keep track of the music. And the use of music is vitally important and fits. It has to fit in the scene. That's part of making the making the valley between cinema and television blur a little bit, bringing some of the cinematic elements to television. The music that they used here, it doesn't fit. And there's any number, and they use a couple different songs here, and none of them fit. In the original version, the song is Tennessee Boys by Grits. Tennessee spelled the normal way, boys spelled B-W-O-Y-S. What? That doesn't fit. First off, that doesn't even fit the cheer competition, really, to me. It's not the best fitting cheer competition song that they could use. Also, not the song they used in practice, but okay. And at this point, you're not changing music like that. I've been in competitions, not like cheer competitions, but I've been in competitions that can engage in music and things, the different performance elements in them. You don't change them that quick. You understand? Like, if you've been practicing on one thing, you're not changing it to a different thing. The DVD version has a Nelly-inspired song that sounds like it's a production song, but it's not. It's an actual song. It's called Make It Bounce. And it was featured in Gossip Girl, which was after Las Vegas, obviously. But if you look it up, it'll say Make It Bounce featured in Gossip Girl by the Invisible Men. I assume that is also a play on that band being mostly a production band or whatever. It's trying to sound like Hot in Her, and it doesn't work either. It works more for the cheer competition, but it certainly doesn't work for the scene in the desert with a held hostage Sam and a killer. And then on the streaming versions, it gets worse. The song also, by the way, the first time I heard this, I was like, oh, this is a terrible AI song. It's not an AI song, actually. It's a song called We Hit Harder by Joy Enriquez, which if you look it up, it'll say, or the thumbnail will be from Netflix's show Elite. Never heard of that show, Elite. If they use this song, it sounds like it's a terrible, it's a terrible song. The song We Hit Harder is an awful song. It sucks. It sucked. The lyrics suck. They're terrible. It seems like the lyrics were written by an AI whose third language is English, specifically for a production. It's awful. And again, even if you want to say that it fits for the cheer competition, which it doesn't, at least not in terms of choreography, like this offbeat. It certainly doesn't fit for Sam held hostage by a serial killer looking for silver. That's a misstep. That's a huge, not even misstep, not even mistake. That's terrible. I'm just gonna call it. I love Las Vegas enough to do this podcast. That's terrible. Did no one second guess this? Did no one look at this? Did we have to do this intercut montage between the two events? We couldn't just do one then the other. We had to do them together. And in doing them together, we couldn't just use production music? Or if you're in that spot, find a music expert who could find a song that could fit there. I'm sure there was another song that could have fit there. It probably would have taken a long time to find. But I'm sure he could have found something. But it felt like they didn't even try. So we cut back and forth. Ugh. I hate that music. I hate this musical choice. We cut back and forth between Sam and Wesley and Ed in his Hummer trying to get to Sam in the desert. And the music is still playing. Sam is directing Wesley to a spot. The Neons are doing their cheer routine. They're pulling it off. Honestly, so far, it doesn't seem as elaborate as, what was it, the Tigers cheer routine? Like, it seems semi-basic, and maybe that's because, I don't know if Amy, I think it said something about her being in gymnastics. No, that was Caroline, who was in, Allie Sweeney, who was in the gymnastics. So maybe Amy wasn't necessarily a cheerleader, but she's not doing any of the intricate stuff. And the only intricate thing that they're doing is they're standing on each other's shoulders. And they probably hired some cheerleaders or somebody with cheerleading experience, actresses with cheerleading experience, to do those parts. So I'm not particularly impressed with the end of their cheer routine. I know they're trying to make it seem like they hit the big time and did it, and it was this amazing thing. It didn't seem any more or less amazing than any of the other cheer routines that we'd seen earlier in the night. But here we are. They nailed it. And Mary, even at the end, gives Caroline a little bit more confidence in saying,
You did it.
And so we cut back to the desert where Ed and Danny are, and they're coming up on the scene. Sam is tied up to one of the tires of the limo as Ed has a plan to try to sneak up on Wesley Allen. And we hear one more bit of military trivia that's been lost for a while. We hear one more bit of military trivia.
What are you doing?
May 2nd, 1863.
Battle of Chancellorsville.
Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to do the old okie doke as Wesley finds a box in the spots. Sam is still tied up over there by one of the tires. Ed comes driving in pretty quickly to distract Wesley as he's trying to pull the box out of the hole in the desert. Now, Wesley doesn't just shoot Ed here, and that's curious because I would have thought that that Wesley would just shoot him because Wesley doesn't need Ed, and clearly Ed is there for no reason. Like maybe Wesley just doesn't want to deal with the body. He doesn't want to deal with the whole cleanup of the body. But at this point, how much does he really care? It'd probably be a harder getaway to have to deal with the body. He doesn't want another one on his jacket. Right now, he's not looking at life. I guess he could. Kidnapping could be considered life, especially with a deadly weapon. Especially if you've already had the 35-year jacket. So it could. You could do that. At this point, in the way Richard Allen Wesley is, he could just kill Ed, but he doesn't because Danny has to hit him in the face with a shovel.
I'll blow you away!
We cut to the game in Belisara, and Chelsea wins over Manchester. And Nessa has to eat it, and she drinks her warm beer before getting kissed by Jason, the soccer hooligan. And she wasn't expecting that. She hadn't swallowed her beer yet, and she spits it in his face. And that laugh of Nessa, that look on her face is terrific.
Congratulations.
She congratulates him, and the Tigers look past their trophy. The soccer hooligan gets in her face and teases her one last time. And Nessa says,
Bet you're glad to get rid of those hooligans.
Truth. They actually made me miss home.
You are home.
Yeah, you are, Nessa. Yeah, you are. We whoosh past into the Neons as they see their trophies, or their trophy, because they made it to Nationals. And they're on their way out immediately after the competition. Like, they're not staying the rest of the night. They're going home. Good. Like, I get it. I've been in those situations before. And Caroline is talking about what she's going to do, what her next steps are. She's going to get rid of the ring. She's going to try to pay off some of the debt. She's going to try to move forward past her husband and try to grow up a little bit. And we then cut back to the desert. Wes is caught again. He's going back to prison.
Lisa, you can do something about finding this bastard a real nice cellmate.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. He sure deserves it.
The box that Wesley dug up was empty, though.
You don't seem too surprised.
Yeah, peanut Gardy.
You saying there's no silver?
Not there.
That'll come up later in the series. What we're listening to right now, if you're watching the original version, is my personal favorite song from this episode. It's called Run Like That by Tom Freund, Freund. That's my favorite song probably of this episode, especially because this episode has some whack-ass songs, to be perfectly honest. That song is played on the original and the DVD version. On the streaming versions, it's a production folk song. It could be AI. It doesn't end like an AI does, though. You can't really make out the lyrics. That doesn't necessarily mean it's AI. It could just be some nonsensical stuff that you're not necessarily supposed to make out the lyrics to, like WKRP and Cincinnati did. Their end theme song is literally just gibberish. You're not supposed to know the lyrics. So it could be that. as Ed and Sam and Danny walk off, and Sam calls shotgun before they get into Ed's Hummer. And as the Hummer drives away, we see a ding in the distance, indicating that that might just be where the silver really is. Maybe. Maybe? Maybe. Maybe not? That was Nevada State. I like this episode. I hate the ending. I hate the ending montage back and forth. I really do. And that does take some points off for me. For sure. I hate that. However, they rated the aggregate rating for it was 8.2 out of 10. I would give it, this is a good episode. I would give it a solid 8. I gave the last episode a solid 8 too. And that one was You Can't Take It. Yeah. I like this. This definitely has some good elements to it. Like it makes you feel. I definitely felt what Mary felt with. You could definitely feel what Mary felt in terms of having to regress back to that high school scene and that high school. Again, you never actually get over high school. You never actually stop living through high school, even in a nursing home. It'll be like high school, but having to regress back there, you definitely felt that. I like the connection that Mike the helping hand he tried to lend out to Mary in that aspect too. The intensity of the Sam Wesley storyline was definitely there. Definitely felt it. There was no slow parts here. It moved all the way through. The acting, by and large, was good. I would definitely give this a solid 8. A solid 8. That ending keeps it from being a 10. I'm still being generous with it. To me it's a solid 8. I'll give it that. Folks, that was episode 18, Nevada State. My rating doesn't count as much as your rating. I want to know what you think of this episode, and you can tell me in all the places where you're listening to this, as well as on the Twitter. Go find the Podecito on Twitter. That's where we are. Next week is, I'm going to be perfectly honest, not one of my favorite episodes. Not one of my favorites. This is an early one of the not one of my favorite episodes. I don't hate it, but it ain't one of my favorites. The music is also a problem in that one. A couple of elements are a problem for me in that one. It ain't my favorite. It's episode 19, Sons and Lovers. It ain't my favorite. But if we're going through every episode, aren't we? Yes, we are, including not my favorite. I don't hate it. Here's why it's not one of my least favorites, because there are some episodes of Las Vegas as we get further into the series, especially closer to the end, that elicit visceral hatred from me. Sons and Lovers doesn't. It's just disappointing. It just feels like a filler to me episode, but we'll see as we go through and we dissect. I'm sure, like other Las Vegas episodes, there are nuggets in here that we will inevitably enjoy for sure. And as a matter of fact, I can think of at least a couple offhand. So I'm not going to say that the rating of that episode is going to be an F, but it probably is not going to be an 8. It's probably not going to be a B. So we'll get to Sons and Lovers next week here at the Podecito. First off, thank you everybody for joining me on this journey. Like I mentioned earlier, share. That is the biggest thing you can do for the podcast, is share with other people, especially those of you who like Las Vegas. If you're in other Las Vegas groups somewhere, you can share a link, drop a link, and that will be helpful, as well as joining the Podecito crew over here with all the different ways you can support. Also, support the sponsors if you're watching on a sponsored version. If you're not with the Podecito crew on the Patreon, etc., for the ad-free version, that's the key reason to go, is you get the ad-free versions, as well as when I'm able to get them out early, you can get them early. That's a good reason to go there as well. But if you're not and you see the ads are legit. Go support the people that are in those ads. They do help the show as well as their friends of the show. In the meantime, in between time, I will see you. And by the way, don't let me saying that Sons and Lovers isn't my favorite episode deter you from coming back next week. Like I said, we will find some stuff to enjoy. I can already think of a handful of things that I do enjoy about that episode. It's just not as good as this one to me, but maybe I'm wrong. Listen, y'all didn't like New Orleans, and that was definitely one of my favorites. So maybe I'm wrong on this one, and you love Sons and Lovers. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it this week. We'll talk about it next week. Vote for your VIP guest stars. In the meantime, the in-between time, I need you to do me the biggest favor of all, and you know what that is? Please, take care.
You can't take